gear off at the moment, but Jason, what a drive.
Yeah, mate, it was great. The car, we sort of ended up pretty close to what we were on Friday in qualifying, and we're pretty happy with the balance on Friday, so we just had to try and reduplicate that. Fortunately, the car's pretty good. We could probably still tidy it up a little bit. I think the track's lost all its rubber now, so we're back to where we were at the start of the weekend as far as grip goes, so might make a change for the second one and see how we go.
Well done.
Thanks, Des.
Greg Murphy, you were rally driving on the South Island just a couple of weeks ago. When you looked at the car coming onto the front straight, there's not much grip, plenty of sideways stuff.
Yeah, listen, it did a really good job though. The car was very consistent, and I was waiting for the tyres to go away because really that's what I expected it to do, and it was very good the whole way through. And Bridie's car was we're pretty close. I think he just had a little edge, but we have definitely made an improvement since Friday. And Eric Pender, my engineer's done a great job because I've been pestering him, telling him that we need to find more, and it seems that we've found a little bit, especially in the consistency value. It's the car was really good through the whole race.
You commented when you first got out of the car, where's the sun gone? Had you anticipated, the car being a certain way given warmer conditions?
No. Listen, I was just hoping that the rain doesn't come from the third race, so it's clouded over the last sort of 20 odd minutes. So just fingers crossed. We'd like to finish with a dry race. I think the car might be going a little bit better in the dry.
Can you do it in the third one?
I don't know. Listen, Bridie's going really quick. He's driving well, and he's done a good job all weekend. So we'll have to put the pressure on him, but he withstood that pretty well, and his car looks pretty good.
Enjoy the rest of the afternoon here at home.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Des?
Well, Marcus, you didn't have the pace in the dry that you had in the wet.
No, I think we just missed the setup there, maybe a fraction, and I missed the start there and let a couple through. So we probably finished where we should have. We didn't have the speed of the front two Commodores, but I'm pleased with third. We're ticking these races off. These are dangerous races this weekend with the side of the track so wet. If you slip one wheel off, you're gone. And with the weather conditions too, it could rain, could be dry. It's a bit of a lottery out there. So I'm pleased. I'm really happy.
Looks like there's rain coming for this third one. You got a grin on your face.
Well, we went a bit in the rain, so at least we know what we should be doing in the rain. And let's hope it has a sprinkle, not too much, so we get another cancelled race. But let's hope we get a full race distance at least.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks, Darryl.
That will make it interesting if we get some rain. It'll reverse a few trends, and some of the guys who are further back in the field will become quick again. Championship update here, Billy. Ambrose 472, Stephen Richards 470, Murphy with 447, Kelly 446, Bright with 393. And incidentally, Paul Radisich, after turning his car around at the end of the first lap over the top of the hill, wound up in 16th position. A bit of a comeback there, but frustrating for him, no doubt.
Oh, Rick Kelly's done a great job. Started 13th in race one, 7th in that race at the end, and now he's moved up to 4th. So he is going in the right direction. Are the clouds going in the right direction? That's the other question. We'll take a break, and pretty soon we'll have some more interesting stuff for you, and then race 3.
So Jason Bright winning race 1. Paul Radisich having a big lose early on Ford Mountain in race 2. And we are looking forward to the V8 Supercars again live on Shell Helix Motorsport at 20 to 4 this afternoon.
A little bit better car towards the end of the race than Richo, so luckily he made a little bit of a mistake and we got underneath him, so more points for us. That's good.
You said you're in need of points here today. You wanted to try and bank some. Just tell me, how different is your setup to Greg Murphy's?
I'm not too sure at the moment. We had a few obligations in between the races, but I assume it's pretty close. We're pretty close time-wise, so I'm sure we can improve it. It's a little bit twitchy out there at the moment, so we'll make a few changes and hopefully improve our position.
We have to come up with another nickname for you, because you're getting all aggressive on us after that race win at Eastern Creek and Bathurst. It's fired you up even more, hasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly motivates you having a couple of good results. My championship position was third leading into this round, so I'm hell-bent on maintaining that position and trying to move forward.
Top stuff, Rick. Well done.
Thank you.
Daz?
Richo, looked like you were struggling with rear tyres out there.
Yeah, a little bit. It was about 7 or 8 laps to go. The left rear was saying see you later, so battled a little bit and then made a little mistake and let Rickster through. So never mind, we'll try and build it a bit better for next one. It's only just lacking that fraction, and I think then we'll be competitive with the front guys.
Still good championship points.
Absolutely, still racking them up there, keeping in touch, and that's what's required.
Thanks, Richo.
Thanks.
There's plenty of action in race 2 of the V8 Supercars at Pukekohe. Race 3 will be live at 20 to 4. Jason Bright, who won race 2, he starts from pole position with Greg Murphy right beside him. As far as the Shell Helix team is concerned, well, we saw Stephen Johnson shunted off in the race. Unfortunate for them. They're having a difficult time of it here at Pukekohe. But earlier this week, Lavina Good was with
Sport Garage before that second race. Even you were getting your hands dirty, and it made a real improvement, didn't it, Carl?
Yeah, Rusty, we changed everything. Front springs, rear springs, ride height, shocks, roll centres, stickers, the whole thing. It just put it back to almost exactly as we had it when we pulled it out of the truck Friday, and the car was obviously a lot better in the race. So we've still got a bit of work to do, but yeah, a lot better, and we stormed through a fair few of them.
How much time is now being spent sort of wandering out the garage and wondering about what the weather's going to do as we prepare for this final race?
Well, who knows? I mean, all you can do is walk out 5 minutes before the race actually starts, and then that's what you've got, because it comes in so quick here and it's changing so much today that, I mean, who knows? I mean, the weather predictors can't get it right. What chance have we got?
It's tough around here, isn't it?
It is, eh?
I mean, we qualified 12th, and to drop one spot in the rain, it was probably lucky. Our car wasn't very good. We made some changes and probably missed it quite a bit, and the rear tyres went away a lot. So lucky to salvage a 13th there, but to come through then was fantastic.
How's the car been in general this weekend?
Yeah, the car's been really good. We've had generally bad luck here in the second race, so I'm glad to get through that one, to be honest. But I had a little problem in that last race where the rear bar, where you can soften and harden as your tyres go off, it actually bent the actual cable. So once I tried to move it soft, it just bent and it didn't move. So that's why I was probably a little bit slower on the first sector to the other guys, and just used the rear tyres up a little bit much. So if we can rectify that problem, we should be looking pretty good for the last one.
All the best in it.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Yes, you heard Stephen Johnson say it. It is hard
for things and keep an eye on it, because it's going to be crucial with no pit stops playing a part this weekend.
Little smile on the face of Craig Baird there from Team Kiwi Racing. Now, they made an interesting call earlier today to come out on the slick tyres in those intermediate conditions.
Yeah, well, he obviously starting way down the grid, he had nothing to lose, and it was. I agreed with him when I heard him talk about it after the race that he thought he'd really made a botch up of the whole thing. After about 10 laps, and then all of a sudden the track started coming to him, and a couple of other guys stopped. Obviously, Scafey stopped and put slicks on when he was tagged off by Richards, and same with Glenn Seaton. So sometimes you've got to take those options, and try and create some luck of your own when it's not going your way.
We saw Greg Murphy just before us, second place in race 2. He starts on the front row of race 3, but he's got Marcus Ambrose and Jason Bright around him, and just ahead of him in terms of a round win and going for 4 in a row.
Yeah, well, obviously Brighty's going to be on top of the points for this final race, and Murph's right there, probably pretty much equal with Ambrose. So Brighty's in the box seat, and I think Marcus struggled a little bit in that second race. He didn't show the speed that he showed in qualifying, which really should carry on. Qualifying isn't really a one-off lap thing. The top 10 is, but I was quite surprised. But unless that polystyrene of compliments of Paul Radisich actually, paid a part and did block off one of those brake ducts, there's the man himself. Goodness gracious, I don't know how he got away with that one, but he was in the hands of the laws, I can tell you that.
Paul Radisich had a very good first race earlier on this morning, the race that got underway at 10 o'clock. He finished 3rd in that, but had a big lose just about there, really, crashing through those advertising signs that have now been restored. And that really was... That was it as far as race 2 was concerned for Paul Radisich. Interesting when you look at the starts of the V8 Supercar races, both times the cars on the outside have actually been into the first corner first. They're in positions 2 and 4.
Yeah, I'm not, haven't been down to that part of the track to have a look, but sometimes where the cars run, which is predominantly on that side of the track, there will be a lot more rubber and the track will be cleaner, whereas not many people go down that inside line unless they're trying to pass somebody or, just cruising around. So, normally where a car sits.
New Zealand's best-selling car in 2003. Commodore Series 2. The next generation. That's my boy.
Venga todo!
Well, the last time we heard and saw the haka and both anthems was when we beat New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup, but I better not say too much more about that or I'll be hustled very quickly out of this country. We go back to pit lane now. Greg.
Billy, just down here on the grid, everyone getting ready for this third and final race, and plenty of attention being, I guess, paid on the skies. I'm down with Paul Wheel. You've had a fantastic day, lots of battles going on, and you've been right in the thick of it, haven't you?
Yeah, mate, it's usually the way, Rusty. I usually qualify pretty dismal and have to work my way back up, but I've had a pretty good tail end Charlie with Russell Ingall behind me pushing me along all the way, so you know, whenever Rusty's behind you, you always get a move on.
I know the temperature's been a bit of an issue for you engine-wise as well, but have a great run today.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Great day for Paul Wheel and a number of drivers here, and a great race ahead of us to conclude this exciting round of Pukekohe. I mentioned what a great run Tony Longhurst had today. He was almost lapped in race 1, but he's up to 13th on the grid for this round or race. And Garth Tander made up 17 positions in race 2 alone to start 11th on the grid. There are some interesting performers here behind the front end of the field, Neil.
Well, it's one of those weekends where there's been a lot of variety as we look at Russell Ingall. You mentioned Tony Longhurst, 26th in the first race, 13th in the second race. What a tough weekend to set up for. The first 3 sessions, practice 1 and 2, and then qualifying on Friday, all dry. Then we turn up on Saturday, the warm-up is wet, the shootout is wet, very wet in fact for the top 10. Race 1 today, semi-wet, and then sort of half drying by the time they got to the end. Race 2 dry, and again now as they move away on their warm-up lap for this third and final race, mostly dry but with just that misty thread. These are the days that make these guys earn their money, and their engineers. How do you want to adjust your car? What changes do you need to make? Do you think that we should opt for a wet car or a dry car? And here is the starting order. It's the 2 Holdens of Bright and Murphy on the front row from Marcus Ambrose and Rick Kelly.
Beyond those 2 rows, Richards and Wheel. We saw a shot of him in close-up a little earlier. Russell Ingall, likewise Stephen Johnson. They've been together for most of the afternoon, Ingall and Johnson. They've had their share of problems, but gee, they've fought back strongly. Row 5 is Richards and Kelly. Then we have Tander and Wills. These are some of the guys who've forced their way through, Neil, through the first couple of races.
We mentioned Tony Longhurst and his burst through the field. Winterbottom's not having a bad afternoon, although the Larkham Motorsport cars have got perilously close to each other on a couple of occasions. Morris, Radisich, and how did he survive that incident at turn 7? He just scuffed the back of the car along the wall there and got away with it. Got through for 16th. Baird, McConville, Traddy, Bradley Jones in 20th. And several drivers will be starting up the back. We'll keep an eye on them. Glenn Seaton is one of them. John Bow visited the pit lane in that previous race. David Bernard, Paul Dumbrell, who had a drive-through from position 24. Then Mark Porter. He had a tyre peel off there after contact with Garth Tander earlier in the day. Steve Ellery, a drive-through as well. Warren Luff found his way to the gravel trap down at turn 4, trying to avoid Porter. Wilson also in trouble. He had that coil drama, ignition coil drama in the previous race. Craig Lowndes with another belt flicking off the engine of the FPR. Ford, Breed, Bargwana, and believe it or not, Mark Scaife, 32nd after starting from pole position. That's an ugly sight for HRT fans.
Well, a few horror stories in that lot, isn't there? Max Wilson losing 23 positions in that second race. Lowndes 21, Scaife 16. And on it goes. But Scaife really has had arguably the biggest fall from grace today, having started at the very front of the field. Jason Bright, though, and Murphy will make a very interesting drag race to the first corner. Bear in mind, in the first 2 races, the driver on pole has been beaten to the sweeper. They're still filling up the positions here. Ambrose and Kelly on row 2. That'll be an interesting battle as well. And don't forget, as Neil pointed out earlier, there's a great little battle for the round victory. Only a handful of points separating
Bright and Murphy and Ambrose, and they're at the front of the field.
And Murphy would have to win this, and Ambrose and Brighty would have to be beyond third position, I think, to take the round win, which might be a tall order, but you never know.
Especially if that rain does turn up. Doesn't look like it right now. The championship battle, Ambrose and Richards separated by only 2 points at the top, so there's a lot at stake here as we get ready for the third race. The crowd are really pressing the fences. They've been entertained here today, and we're off for race 3. How well can the pole man go? Jason Bright and Murphy side by side, heading to the first corner here. Race position vital. Ambrose behind them in his own battle, beating off Rick Kelly, but it's Bright leading Murphy now as they head towards this long and exciting back straight.
Great jump for Bright. His initial move away was very good, and then it looked like he got just a little bit too much wheel spin, and Murphy was able to range up on the outside, but Bright had the clean track line through turn 1 and held position down through the S's for the first time. Into the braking area on cold tyres. Bright, then Murphy, then Ambrose, Rick Kelly, Stephen Richards is there, Paul Wheel. Next man in the queue is Russell Ingall, Stephen Johnson, Garth Tander. Morris on the outside of Radicic.
Almost a full lap now completed successfully. Bright just with a little breathing space on Murphy. Ambrose is looking quick. Kelly right behind him. Great results so far for the Kmart Racing team this weekend, and 1 lap completed. Bright with a 1 minute 2.65 from the standing start. Not too bad. Nearly half a second on Greg Murphy.
Ambrose sweating on the back of Murphy. You may be wondering, we were expecting to have a 36 lap race yesterday and 2 54 lappers today with compulsory tyre stops in each of those, but track flooded yesterday, the race abandoned, so 3 races today, all of duration of 36 laps, and the compulsory pit stops removed from the format, so 3 pure sprint races. And at the moment, lap 2 of 36 for race 3, Bright, Murphy, Ambrose, Kelly and Stephen Richards. There's Todd Kelly.
Another great battle between Rick Kelly and Murphy for third place in the championship after the 2 races. 1 point separating them. Murphy third, Kelly fourth. Kelly, of course, went to third in the championship after his victory at Eastern Creek, and that was somewhat overlooked with Stephen Richards, of course, taking the lead. There's Richo there, right behind Rick Kelly.
I think it was his car dancing around pretty violently on the exit, the top of the hill, then coming down the front straight. 57.8. First flying lap for Jason Bright, half a second margin over Greg Murphy. 57.9 for Murph, 8.1 for Ambrose, 8.4 for Kelly, 8.3 for Stephen Richards, 8.3 for Paul Wheel. This is a replay of the start. Watch Brighty to the right. Great jump. Murphy didn't quite go with him, but he got a better run after it stretched its legs. Two of them make virtually even gear changes, and then he's on the outside in the dirty stuff is Greg Murphy. He has to just yield slightly. He knew that that was going to take him nowhere. So a pretty clean start. The remark I was going to make there before, Billy, is that probably for the first time I can recall in the first couple of laps of any race in the V8 Supercars at Pukekohe, not too many people tangling up, down at the hairpin. Stephen Richards, meantime, has got 3. You may be curious to know the first to second gear change with the 3.5 diff in these cars is done at 104 Ks. Here's a replay. This will be Stevie Richards making his move on Rick Kelly, and he made it stick very well, and Rick gave him space. The second to third gear change, 135 Ks. Third to fourth, 161. Fourth to fifth, 198. Fifth to sixth, 240 Ks. And peak speed at this racetrack, right in this spot here, 7,500 revs, 268 kilometres an hour, and a mega stop here. It's a fantastic bit of road and a big surface change from the old surface to the new. And you've got to be very careful if you don't read that correctly, ask too much of your tyres and brakes in that particular spot. You'll find yourself visiting the sand trap in a real hurry.
Bright Murphy, Ambrose pushing Murphy, close proximity there, and Richards now having shaken himself free of Rick Kelly. That's car 15. Richards just, of course, going out of picture there. Paul Wheel just behind Rick Kelly. Stephen, of course, is battling Ambrose for the championship lead. He needs to get in front of him in order to wrest that back at the end of the day.
Even though it's darker, the ambient temperature in this race, same as the previous, 23 degrees, 23 for both air and track. Fastest lap so far, Jason Bright, 57.58. We join Russell Ingall. 57.8 for Murph, 57.6 for Ambrose, 7.6 for Richo, 8 flat for Kelly, 8-2 for Wheel and an 8-1 for the man that we were just on board with, Russell Ingall.
He's still 7th, but he's attacking Paul Wheel here. Had a good look up the inside.
You can carry a little bit of brake and put some turning attitude into the car right at the very end of the stop there, but you've got to be careful, because if the other guy hasn't seen you, the gap diminishes, and that's when all the trouble starts at turn 5.
There are gains to be made here for Russell. He looks to have pretty good speed on the guys in front of him. Meanwhile, Bright has a 1.7-second lead over Murphy. Pretty close from there on, although Ambrose has nearly a second over Stephen Richards.
And Bright further improves his fastest lap to a 57.5119. So pressure now coming on to Paul Wheel from Russell Ingall. Bright, Murphy, Ambrose, Stevie Richards, Rick Kelly, Paul Wheel, then this man Ingall, Stephen Johnson next. Listen to the thing howling on the rev limiter. Jason Richards still doing a good job there, and he has another look down the shallow line there, but he can't get the job done in that spot.
We'll take a break. Bright, Ambrose, Murphy, Richards, Kelly, Wheel, Ingall, Johnson, Jason Richards and Garth Tander. That's your top 10. Todd Kelly, the first of the Holden Racing Team cars. Mark Scaife fighting through from further back in the field. Bow was mystified on Friday in qualifying. He had been very quick. In fact, he was the fastest in the first session of practice. And when he bolted new tyres on in qualifying, the car yawned. Nothing happened. They didn't get the speed yield they expected. There's the shot of Mark Scaife in 20. I'm looking on here at the scoreboard. It's just scrolling through at the moment. 25th at last count. And he's about to attack young Bardley. The lights are on.
24th and 5th, these two characters. And I mentioned Glenn Seaton before. He's in 21st position. Hard yards when you do it from this far back. Great shot of the back of Bradley's BA, and you can see how much of the curb you've got to use at this racetrack. They're quite wide, quite flat, but they're very rough, particularly on the exit there of turn 4, and they'll shake the fillings clean out of your head.
This will be an interesting battle. They sit beside each other in the V8 Supercars show, and they certainly trade plenty of verbal blows there. Let's see how they go when they're next to each other on the track.
Bradley gives him space, and Mark and Bradley pretty evenly matched up the back chute, but Mark was able to get a real advantage under brakes there and made good use of it. Much deeper under brakes and moves up one slot. They're opponents and pretty fierce rivals, but they do get a giggle out of each other's warm sense of humour occasionally.
Oh, I thought Bradley was far too nice on that occasion, actually. I'm terribly disappointed. Jason Farquhardt right behind them, you might notice, and that is a shame in the sense that he was much further up the field earlier in the day.
Isn't that a great shot?
That is awesome.
Dumbrell next in the queue for Mark Scaife with the headlights ablaze. The difficulty when you're in this position, Bill, is that you'd have to use more of the car, more of the rubber than you'd like to. It's not like when you're out front or near to the front and you're strolling the car along in a very comfortable rhythm. This requires much more aggressive use of the brake pedal, stamping on the throttle coming off the tight corners, uses up the rear tyres, and generally you reach a point in the race where you've peaked, and that's where you end up.
Greg.
Neil, just a quick word from the boys at Orcon Racing. They've spoken to Mark Winterbottom. For some reason, the Konica champion has developed a fuel surge problem. It cost him about 5 spots 2 laps ago, so he's dropped down the order. They've told him to switch to reserve. At the moment, everyone coming out of their pit bunkers looking skyward. The general talk from the locals here was that a storm, if it did hit, would hit around 20 minutes to half an hour into this race. So that's around lap 20 or lap 30. So everyone keeping an eye on the weather right now.
It's pretty dark at the moment, Rusty, and it's just got that look about it. The temperature's still quite good. It's 23 degrees, as I said before.
I was going to say, when we saw Scaife there just wiping a bead of sweat from his nose while he was driving, the conditions in the car would still be quite warm, because everyone's walking around when it's not raining with short sleeve shirts and whatnot.
It's a good plus 20 in the car above ambient, so it'll still be a cabin temperature in the high 30s or low 40s. It makes it a pretty hot little sauna to work in.
Looking here at Rick Kelly, Paul Wheel, Russell Ingall.
This is the back of the Stevie Johnson mobile, looking at Jason Richards. Richards getting a hand this weekend at Tasman Motorsport from one of our old mates, Ross Holder.
No points at Eastern Creek for Jason.
And Matty House joining that team this weekend as well, together with Wally Story. So some extra hands on deck at Tasman Motorsport, and it appears as though they're in for a fairly good weekend so far. And young Jace is 9th and sweating on the back of the Shell car.
Well, they wanted to debut the VY Commodore here, but they're going to have to wait until round 6 at Queensland Raceway. They just want to test it properly before they dial it in. Stephen Johnson.
Todd having a look down the inside of Garth.
Yeah, that's a good little battle there. And back in the pits, Winterbottom, as you said, Neil, has had some problems, so he's going to drop further down the order there.
This is a good battle between these two characters as they line up for the big bump at 6.
8th position, Junior Johnson from Jason, Garth. Paul Radicic is battling back as well, just outside the top 10 as we head back to pit lane.
Bit of chat going on here between Mark Larkham and the crew. When Mark Winterbottom came in with that fuel surge issue, it looked like it may have been some sort of fuse-related problem. The guys got inside the cabin very quickly and punched some of the fuses. It seemed to correct it, and they sent him on his way very quickly.
Bright by 4.3 seconds in front. Close, though, between Ambrose, Murphy and Stephen Richards.
They may have actually reset a circuit breaker there, Rusty, and he's then able to go back onto the mains and off the reserve pumps. Kelly and Wheel getting so close there on the hairpin, and Paul picks up the throttle a little bit. Actually, that wheel spin cost him because it allowed Russell to have a shot. Meanwhile, Mark Scape now up to 20th, and Russell is all over the back of Paul Wheel. That'd be a hairy spot to do it. He didn't quite get the run he needed there, but that little mistake that Paul Wheel made where he got too close to the back of Rick Kelly at just an awkward spot, he then picked up the throttle aggressively off the hairpin and slid her off the corner, and that was all the incentive that Russell needed. You see the curbing there on the right-hand side at turn 1. It tends to literally rattle the car into an oversteer there, and you see some pretty wild angles at a good 200-odd kilometres an hour. Coming off the back straight, typically in 3rd gear, 4th, 5th, and then a decent run in 6th where they're on the limiter. There's Russell grabbing 6th. Listen to the limiter. There it is. Huge stop here, massive brake temperatures up around 600 degrees, plunging down to 65 k's, 2nd gear here. 3rd, then 4th as we go back to the Winterbottom car. Some guys choose 5th just in this spot here, some stay with 4th, and then the right-hander brings you onto the straight 5th gear. Rusty, what can you tell us about what's going on down there with that thing?
Neil, basically think it's a fuel pump problem now. You were dead right. They did reset that circuit breaker before, so frantic work for the Konica champion, but not much in the way of luck right now.
Jason Bright by 4.5 seconds now, taking a very strong hold on this race. He needs the points. He's 5th in the championship, and there's quite a gap between he and the 4th placed Rick Kelly. But there's not much difference between Russell Ingall and Paul Wheel. Wheel's regained composure here and pinched a bit of a break, but Ingall is still intent. We'll be back with more very soon from race 3, Pukekohe. Well, Jason Bright's lead is 5 seconds now. We thought he might have been rolling off just a little bit, saving tyres perhaps. You might have noticed in the previous race he had to defend his position after the tyres went off towards the end. Well, he's built a fairly big buffer now, so it'll be interesting to see just what gains Ambrose and perhaps Murphy and Richards can make towards the end of the race. The gap between those guys is not much. Murphy 1.4 seconds behind Ambrose, and Richards another 1.3 further back.
Last lap for Jason was a 58.1 versus Marcus a 58.4. There he is, 5.3 seconds first to second, then 1.4 seconds is the gap back to Murph, 1.3 to Stevie, and then 4.4 to Rick Kelly. So they've kind of spread out a little bit, which is a bit unusual. But when you look at the speed that this man had in qualifying on Friday, everybody's eyebrows went up. That was a very, very impressive time, and they've got their car working really beautifully around here.
What it's looking like, Neil, is our 3rd different winner in as many races, which is good for the championship. And certainly starting the year with the VY Commodore has been a great boost for Jason Bright. As we scroll back through the field here, Stephen Ellery defending his position
across those bumps there. This is positions 23 and 4 and 5.
Jason Bargwana there ahead of Ellery. Little touch there, it's McConville. In fact, just in front of the 2nd of the Shell Helix racing cars.
it's amazing, you know, you can be out there absolutely working your backside off, and you know, you look on the result sheet, you come back in, Billy, and you think, what was all that about? You know, I'm 25th or whatever, and these guys are working absolutely as hard, if not harder than those up the front, often battling cars that are just not happy. It's hard work and a bit unrewarding. Rusty.
Gary Rogers, you're watching on, but it's been a bit of a tough day at the office for you, Blakes, hasn't it? Garth's on the improve, though.
Yeah, look, to be quite frank, it's a dismal performance, and it's disappointing. You know, we had such a good run at Eastern Creek. Looked like we perhaps were getting on top of it, but clearly we haven't got on top of it here. And, you know, I don't know what to say. It's just we've got to keep working and keep at it and just persevere, but we want to do a hell of a lot better than this.
Thanks, Gary.
Pretty frank words from Gary Rogers, the owner of the Valvoline Cummins Repco team. Jason Bright, incidentally, a 14th and a 3rd in the 2 races in Adelaide, and 13th at Eastern Creek. So this will certainly smarten his points haul along, and as you quite rightly pointed out, Billy, it's good for us to get variety at the pointy end of the field. It certainly keeps the championship alive.
Well, he needs a big haul of points. The downside is he's not that far ahead of the guys in front of him, if you know what I mean, in terms of championship points. Ambrose and Richards are the 2 guys on top of the championship, then Murphy, then Rick Kelly. Then there's quite a gap to Bright, about 50 points. So that's what I'm getting at. He needs more points.
One thing that was noticeable then looking at Garth's car coming down the straight was the air gap from the splitter to the road. The car's got a real noticeable longitudinal pitch in it. Look at the gap there. It's really sitting down on its haunches, and that gap is quite large. And then when he goes for the brake pedal, there's a massive pitch forward in the car. You don't often see that. Like, you typically see that, wham, down she goes. The car really rocks front to rear and rear to front. And they're obviously trying lots of different setup things in the car to overcome some deficiencies, and sometimes you just end up down weird paths, and always impossible to eyeball engineer somebody's race car, and it's dancing around a lot across the bumps as well. But whenever you see something that looks outwardly different from any of the front-running cars, you put a question mark next to it and say, maybe some more homework required. The car certainly looks a little bit odd there. Sometimes paint jobs can be deceiving as well, and that can make it look a bit strange, but you focus on that air gap left to right, the amount of roll that's in the car and the amount of pitch that's in the car, and it's quite noticeable.
Just a reminder too, as we look at nearly the front end of the field, 2nd place Ambrose and 3rd place Murphy, that gap seems to have closed a little bit, but the cars had to be rolled onto the boat and straight back to Darwin for the next round. It's not too far away, so a very busy period for the teams. And once again, look at what Neil was talking about as Murphy goes through that turn 6 and turn 7 area. Back to Greg Rust.
Billy, one of the cars that's being put away early for that trip to Darwin is car 20, Mark Winterbottom. Were they able to get to the bottom of what caused your retirement?
Yeah, we had a fuel pressure problem. The alarm come up on the dash, and yeah, it was looking good. The car was really good in that race. We got from 14 to 12 at the start, so I finally rectified my starting problems from last year, and yeah, the race was looking really good behind Todd Kelly, but this happens, it's motorsport, and hopefully we can fix it for Darwin.
Good luck then.
Thanks, mate.
Jeff Marks had to start off the back of the grid for this race. Can you tell us a bit more of what happened in race 2?
Yeah, Darryl, in race 2, he come into the hairpin, and he had it coming together with Craig Baird, I think it was, and bent the steering arm. So obviously that was the end of the race, really. It was quite bad, so we couldn't continue. So he's done a good job to get from where he's up to, I think he's position 20 or 18 or something like that.
Because earlier on he had a first stop in that race too. You thought it was a flat tyre or something. Was there any other dramas there?
Yeah, initially he thought it was a puncture. He radioed out and he said it was a puncture, but it wasn't. It was the bent steering arm, and it was rubbing the tyre. That's why he thought it was a tyre. But, you know, we're having a tough weekend, but we've got some good things coming down the road, so hopefully we'll get up there, you know, shortly.
All the best in Darwin.
Thanks, mate.
There's been a bad sportsmanship flag shown to Cameron McConville for blocking. That's a long way back in the field. You're talking about 25th position. And Greg Murphy is slowly gaining ground on Marcus Ambrose. We showed that a short time ago. The trend is continuing. The storm clouds are gathering, and Jason Bright has a 7.4 second lead. We'll be back.
Marcus Ambrose fighting back after Greg Murphy had closed the gap in this race. It is 2.3, I beg your pardon. Yes, 2.3 seconds.
58.3 for Jason Bright the last lap, 58.5 for Marcus Ambrose, and 58.4 for Greg Murphy. So they're all hovering in very similar position. Look at Murph just having a bit of a fiddle with the belts here, and maybe looking for the end of his drink bottle hose. His face looks pretty red, and he is actually just marginally creeping up onto the back of Marcus Ambrose, as you pointed out there. But great speed from Jason Bright here, Billy. He just continues to pound out laps. They might only be a tenth or two better than everybody else, but it just keeps on adding up.
That 2.3 seconds was the gap from Murphy to Richards. I'm getting a parallax view of the monitor here, but anyway, we move on. You can see how close these guys are, and Bright is now 8 seconds clear, so that game may be over.
Just keeps inching away. I don't think this game's over, but Brighty's well in control now. 29 laps recorded, 36-lap race. They're on lap 30, obviously, and the thing is now he can afford to just sneak out of the throttle a little bit, break a metre or two earlier, and just take it easy, looking after the car and not be in any doubt. Here's the difference in the last 4 laps between Marcus Ambrose and Greg Murphy, and you can see that Murphy's been taking time off him on 3 of those 4 occasions.
Yeah, this is shaping as a very interesting battle, and fans will get involved in this as well as they come back around towards the main grandstand. We go to Greg Rust.
Billy, I guess it's an opportune time to spare a thought for the crews here in pit lane. A number of them have been here since midnight last night with the rising waters from the heavy rains, and they'll be here until very late tonight cleaning up these cars so they can get them packed on the boat and okayed for customs purposes in terms of their cleanliness, I guess you could say. They'll be back off the boat in Brisbane on Friday the 15th of May, and a number of the Queensland teams plan to have the cars and trucks back on the road for Darwin by Sunday the 17th, so pretty tight turnarounds at the moment between this round of Pukekohe and the Hidden Valley event.
Yeah, which means no rest at all. And you mentioned cleanliness. G'day, Les. You mentioned cleanliness there, Rusty, and because of customs and quarantine issues on both sides of the pond, every last scrap of dirt, mud, stone, you name it, has got to be removed off all equipment, the cars, the floors in the garages, and you can imagine after a weekend like this what it looks like inside some of the transporters. They look like gravel trucks. So I can recall the nightmare for the crews, you know, year on, year out, coming here to a paddock that is can be a bit of a battle. Darryl.
Neil, it's interesting watching Marcus Ambrose. I'm wondering, with these races being 36 lap and no pit stops, it seems like in both the dry races toward the end, he's been struggling probably with rear grip and power down, and he's losing to Murph now. Normally they make an adjustment to that roll centre on the run when we have pit stops. No pit stops this weekend. Do you think that's hurting them?
I think that's a spot-on observation, Darryl, because we've not had races like this in the recent past, a format change on the run. So you're quite right. Normally what happens is if the driver doesn't feel as though he's got the chassis trimmed to his precise liking, you can call for a little change, and it can make a very big difference. Or you can re-pressure your next set of tyres by half a pound one way or the other, and it can make a huge difference in the behaviour and comfort of the car. So I think that's a very accurate observation. There's no opportunity to do that this weekend at all. 8.2 seconds, Jason Bright, Marcus Ambrose. This man here is in 8th position, Stephen Johnson.
Murphy now within a second of Marcus. There's Stephen. Top 10 position for him. Bit of a tough weekend for Warren Luff, but bear in mind, he has actually driven a Pukekohe before, Warren Luff, but not in a V8 Supercar.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago in a Peugeot little production car. So that's a fair old contrast, isn't it? Peugeot to a Ford Falcon V8 Supercar.
I think so. Garth Tander here defending his spot from Paul Radisich.
Remember I said earlier in the telecast, Billy, that you reach a point in these races where you go into a bit of a flat orbit, you make ground for a while, and then after that nothing happens. Well, looking down the order, Mark Scaife and Brad Jones are still 19th and 20th, and they're still behind Max Wilson, who's still behind Anthony Tratt. And even if you've got a car that might be, let's say, for example, a tenth or two stronger, look at this, Murphy up the inside at turn 6, he gets him. Murphy on the charge.
What a place to do it, and Ambrose was absolutely on the edge. You could hear the tyres squealing as he dug it in.
Oh, Dale Breed off and drags a bit of mud and garbage along with him.
Ooh, he's
and
facing.
the crowd loving every second of that. This is down at turn 3.
Watch your head, watch your head, watch your head.
And that's the message from Rob Crawford to Murph. Beware of what's going on down there. There's foam on the road. Actually, Ambrose got a better run then. He sort of picked it better because he was able to react to whatever Murph did. But he's still got margin. He'll be okay. He's obviously, as Darryl quite rightly pointed out, and there we've got Paul Morris with a problem with the left front. And
I wonder if he was involved with the Breed incident in any way.
Possibility, isn't it? So... and Craig Lowndes back in.
That's a familiar sight.
So we'll get the boys to check on what's going on there with the Cat car. Here's the overtaking manoeuvre. Great exit off the hairpin for Greg Murphy. So traction is the issue for Marcus. Greg gets up the inside on the approach to turn 6. Has a bit of a fan with the throttle. Has track position and away he goes. Now here's a replay of what happened, I think, to Dale Breed. And he did this on his own at turn 2. Backed her up. Got a bit of mud and water through the driver's window.
So
laid a bit of a steamer and off he went.
Morris has I don't think had anything to do with that. So Dale Breed's car will be dirtier than a Darryl Beattie weekend by the time they get it back into the pits. And we have Jason Bright just easing off now, as you'd expect at the end of the race. 7.35 seconds. Marcus Ambrose is very close to Greg Murphy and determined, and a bit dirty himself actually after losing second position. Stephen Richards 1.5 seconds further back. A lot of action going on further down the order though.
Even though Murphy's moved up one slot now, that still means in terms of the overall, if they stay where they are, Jason Bright clearly the round winner with 190 points, Ambrose with 184 for second, and Murphy would be third with 182. Still not a bad act to be able to get on the podium here for the 4th successive year. Darryl.
Well, Craig Lowndes, Neil, just does not get better for this guy at the moment, but I can hear the guys, they're under the car at the moment, they've got the bonnet up and there's smoke pouring out from under it. I heard him say something about it's only the power steering, so we'll keep an eye on this and see what's going on.
In the meantime, Jason Bright has eased up dramatically, 6.8 second lead. Of course, he's running into traffic as well. Todd Kelly running into grass.
There's a bit of garbage on the road back there as well. That's Longhurst going through on Todd and Simon Wills in behind. Here's Paul Morris with that. Oh, no problem for him as that car whacks the wall big time, a la Wayne Gardner 1996. Right up at the top of the hill, turn 7. Ouch. Just all of a sudden, as the checkered flag comes out for Jason Bright to clean up on lap 36, caught us by surprise. 6.8 seconds the margin, 7.2 in fact at the very end, and a great performance for PWR. Well done, Brighty and the crew, Craig Spencer, Phil Key, and everybody associated, and Murph in second place. Great performance from him at the end, from Marcus Ambrose, Stevie Richards, and what about Paul Morris? Big contact with the wall there. Further back behind Stephen Richards, Rick Kelly, Paul Wheel, Russell Ingalls, Stephen Johnson, Jason Richards, 9th. Great effort from that team. Garth Tander, Paul Radisich, John Bow, Tony Longhurst, Todd Kelly, Simon Wills, Anthony Tratt. Let's hope that Paul's okay here. That's dislodged the diff housing across to the right. You can see the right rear hanging out at the side of that guard there.
Well, he did his best to steal the show, didn't he?
It looked like either a suspension failure or another puncture of some description. And that suddenly, just drops on the road. And I reckon that's another puncture for some reason. And Paul's got nowhere to go, but whacks up against the wall. Greg.
Went and had a word with Nigel Barclay, the team boss, just prior to this incident, Neil, after the deflating left front. And I think you're right. I think the same thing has happened again. They were totally perplexed, though, as to what caused that first puncture.
There may be something out on the track, but, I mean, it's amazing that one bloke could find the same thing twice. So it's more than likely something going on with the inner guard in that car, or perhaps with the splitter on the car moving back. If he made contact with anybody at some time, maybe he's got a bit of carbon rubbing on it, who knows. But a great performance from Jason Bright, and I think the point that I was trying to make in a clumsy fashion before, Billy, is a tremendous performance from Greg Murphy to, stand on this podium for the 4th successive year in a row. He doesn't end up being where he would ideally want to be, but it's still a mean performance one way or another.
Yeah, I don't think anyone here at Pukekohe cares too much about that. They're just glad to see him up there and being competitive. Great battle with Ambrose, and 3 guys who are certainly championship contenders, although Brighty has given them a bit of a start.
but he's proven that he can win rounds now, unlike last year where he led the championship at this stage but hadn't won a round. And we'll update the championship points as soon as possible. But in terms of the round victory, Bright 190, Ambrose 184, and Murphy 182.
I make Ambrose at 532 championship leader from Stevie Richards 528, Greg Murphy with 509 as we confirm on the Shell Helix scoreboard the race score. And then we've got Rick Kelly with 502. Jason Bright moves up to 5th with 457. So the order here, Bright, Murphy, Ambrose, Richards, Kelly, Wheel, Ingle, Johnson, Jason Richards and Garth Panda. Not a bad recovery from a tough qualifying.
Paul Radicic fell back a little bit, but once again, 888 Racing showing that their cars have pace. They've just got to put it together over the racing section of the weekend. Max Wilson back in 17th spot. Great run from Anthony Tratt, up to 16th from 19th in race 2, and he's gained 12 positions across the 3 races. So good effort from him just by basically staying out there out of trouble. Barguana falling back to 21st in contrast to that performance. Glenn Seaton, Warren Luff ran into a bit of trouble late in the race. So did a lot of these guys actually further down the order. Dale Breed 29th and Paul Morris. What a DNF that was.
And Bradley Jones ended up being in front of Mark Scaife at the completion of all that. There's an innovation for this season as Murph just takes what's called the pick-up off the tyres on this cool-down lap. Avesco now determining a good idea for the drivers to pluck their helmets off and do a parade lap and acknowledge not only the enormous crowd, not only at this circuit either, but at every circuit, but also the officials and the volunteers who work so hard to make these meetings a reality. So the top 3 guys just on the back straight now, and we'll obviously get to them as soon as they come back, and we'll have a word to them to find out how each of their individual races went. But they are all worthy of fine applause in this 3rd and final race today, Billy. They did a great job. I mean, Bridie was so consistent. The first 4 or 5 laps, he just kept whacking out 57.5 after 57.5. He looked like he was a machine. And it looked for a while as though Murphy was a bit of a goner and that car was not going to be consistent enough, but he obviously changed his approach or maybe made some internal adjustments to anti-roll bars and things and was able to recover a little bit later in the race, get stuck back into Marcus and displace him, and Marcus hung on for a good 3rd place. And in terms of the way that looks for the championship, it's all good news.
He's still the only Ford driver to stand on the podium here at the end of the weekend. He had a stomach virus on Friday, just shot a TV commercial with Craig Lowndes, which apparently is going to air pretty soon. And we did mention the Stone Brothers Racing email address before when you want to bid for that helmet that Russell's putting up for charity, the Starlight Foundation. But also Stone Brothers has just launched a new website too, so you might want to have a look at that if you're a Ford fan or a Stone Brothers Racing fan.
I reckon this bloke's pretty pleased about this because in the last couple of race meetings his car hasn't quite been there, and probably a bit of relief. You know, he was very, very close to the pointiest end of the field today, Greg Murphy, so quite a decent recovery. It hasn't been the best start to the championship season for him, with a 4th and a 9th in Adelaide and then a 5th in Eastern Creek. And at Eastern Creek he qualified poorly, and his teammate got the glory there in the wet conditions, but at least he yielded a 5th out of it in that 300k race. But this will be a little bit of sugar for him.
When I asked him during the week how much of a save that was at Eastern Creek, he just shook his head and went, oh, unbelievable. He said he was so relieved that it rained there and he was able to get away with the result. But this man here is in winning form now and in very good shape indeed. He has a bit of catching up to do as we savour the atmosphere. Plenty of Holden fans here this weekend. Let's hear from Murph.
Well, he's certainly soaking up the atmosphere right now, and what a fantastic fight with Marcus Ambrose.
Yeah.
How did you do it?
Well, maybe, I don't know what happened. I think he may have had a bit of a problem or something, I'm not sure. But he pulled a good move on me. It didn't leave me much through, I got to say. Made me work pretty hard out in the grass there for a bit, but I'm not sure if he had something going wrong, but we managed to catch back up there towards the end and get a move on him, and it stuck. So that was really good. So pretty happy.
Nice weekend for the fans. I know you wanted to win here, but at least you're on the podium.
Yeah, listen, it was going to be really hard. Jason's team and Jason have done a great job this whole weekend, and deservedly have taken it out. And I'm pretty happy about that. And at least it's a Holden.
Happy too, I guess, that the car's made some improvements this weekend. It took until the weekend for you to make those gains, but it's certainly improved.
Yeah, it has, and unfortunately, I think we actually lost a little bit for that race. Made it go backwards a little bit, so it was better in the second race today. but unfortunately we've gone backwards a little bit. But that's okay. We've worked on a few things. We've tried some stuff. Some stuff hasn't worked, but we'll see what happens.
Good luck in Hidden Valley.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Well, Marcus, it wasn't a win, but it's your best result here in New Zealand.
Yeah, we're pleased with it. Both these two Holdens on the podium were very, very fast. Craig and Jason drove really well, and I'm really pleased we finished second, and even just got a good points haul today. It was a lottery with the weather. We were throwing springs at it 10 minutes before the race started, so just wrapped. Great for the team. We're just on a good momentum right now. We're not getting the wins like we were last year, but we're ticking the points on, which is so important.
Do you feel if you would have had pit stops, normally you make that adjustment in a pit stop, that would have been better for you?
Yeah, I think we would have made changes definitely in the pit stops, but not to be. I'm just pleased we got through 3 races. It would have been disappointing for the fans not to get 3 proper races in.
Well done, Marcus. Greg?
Jason Bright, what a fantastic weekend for this team and what a great result for you. Well done.
It was great, mate. The guys did a fantastic job on the car all weekend. From the word go, we were on the money, and a little bit disappointed the top 10 shootout was in the wet, because I thought we had a pretty good shootout car as well. And it's full credit to them, really. They've certainly put together a good car, and looking forward to the next couple of rounds.
The impressive thing was that the car seemed strong in both conditions, though.
Well, exactly. We were struggling at Eastern Creek in the wet, and we made a couple of wrong calls there. The last 2 rounds, we've probably struggled a little bit at. We came away from Eastern Creek and found a few problems with the car, and I think we're back on the form that we had at the Grand Prix. So hopefully we can have a strong rest of the year.
Feels good for you, I bet.
Oh, it sure does, mate. I just want to say hello to the guys back home on the couch, and my girlfriend Alicia.
Cheers. Well done, mate.
This broadcast of the V8 Supercars was brought to you by Repco. Cars are our life too.
Three exciting sprint races today, and boy, the conditions made it tough. It was drying through the day, but there was always the potential for disaster to happen. Stay with us. The official presentation coming next. To Jason Bright, so the Greg Murphy fans will go home a touch disappointed. For the first time, Greg Murphy not the round winner here at Pukekohe. So 3 very exciting races today. Obviously that happened because we lost the racing yesterday. 3 sprint races today, all 36 laps. With me, Phil Dark and Shane Drake. And Phil, good performance from Jason Bright. Fantastic performance by the team.
Absolutely. I mean, he was...
Let's go to the podium now for the race presentation.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the organisers of the Placemakers V8 International were certainly tested with weather yesterday, but you've seen 3 fantastic races today and a good crowd on hand at Pukekohe Park Raceway. Please put your hands together after a fantastic day. And now to say a few words, would you please make welcome the CEO of Placemakers, Mr. David Worley, to say a few words.
Thanks very much. Firstly, to you, all you fans, thank you for turning out in what hasn't been an ideal weather-wise weekend. We're delighted to be here, and we're looking forward to being here again next year. And just one quick thought for you all. If you really want this event to stay in Auckland, make sure you let your councillors know, because beyond next year, it's up to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you to Placemakers for their support of the event, and to, of course, all the team from IMG who've worked tirelessly to make it a success. In 3rd place today, he's been the king of Pukekohe in recent years. How about making a nice round of applause and welcome him home? He's on the podium, Greg Murphy from Kmart Racing. Collecting the trophy there from David. Come on, say a few words. We know you'd probably prefer to be collecting the winner's trophy today, but it's been probably the toughest one you've faced yet, isn't it?
Yeah, it has been, mate, and we got here today, got on the podium thanks to all the people that came here today. Thanks very much for that. We know it was a tough call yesterday, and you all got very wet, but it was worthwhile, and today got 3 really good races, I think. So thank you very much, and it's certainly helped me get where I am. It was a tough weekend, but it was great to be on the podium. Sooner or later, the fantastic run had to have a bit of a blemish, and I'm pretty happy to be here, and congratulations to Jason and his team for doing a fantastic job. Thanks to Kmart, Castrol, Holden, and all our sponsors. Thanks very much.
That make you a little bit hungrier for next year. We saw some good pace from you toward the end of the day today, and also some good stuff from your teammate Rick Kelly.
Yeah, listen, Rick's been on fire, and he drove fantastic today. We had a good car in the second race today, and we made some changes which probably didn't quite work out, but the result was fantastic, and I think we would have been hard pressed to beat Jason today because he drove fantastic.
How tough was it to adapt to the conditions? They were a bit changeable today.
Yeah, listen, I think we were pretty happy that we got the races this afternoon the way they were, and the racing was fantastic. I think the fans can go away not so cold, and we're pretty pleased.
There he is, Greg Murphy, ladies and gentlemen, from Kmart Racing, third in the 2004 Placemakers V8 International here at Pukekohe. The man who has taken control of the championship once again. He's back on top of the leaderboard. A fantastic second place today. The reigning champion from Pertec and Stone Brothers, a local Pukekohe-based team. How about it for Marcus Ambrose? Well, thanks. That was a busy day at the office for you. What happened toward the end of the race there? You got Murph early on, but what happened toward the end?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just chasing the car and myself, and the tyres are getting a little bit loose on the rear end, and I just couldn't hold him off. It was great dice. It was a stalemate there in the middle part of the race. It probably wasn't that interesting outside the car, but inside we were working really hard. And what a great day we've had. Finished on the podium, which is always fantastic. The weather stayed away for us. We got 3 good races in, so it's been a great day. Just didn't quite get the win.
Championship lead back again, though. It's we're only 3 rounds into it, but it's a fantastic battle that's unfolding in the V8 Supercar Championship Series, isn't it?
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 cars that are really close together, and any one of us, if we have a bad round, we're out of it. So just got to keep the points ticking over, and I'm not even going to think about the championship until maybe round 10 or 11.
Nice to see you on the podium here.
Thank you.
There he is, Marcus Ambrose, ladies and gentlemen. How about a nice round of applause as well for Ross and Jim Stone, the locals getting a driver on the podium. And the winner today from PWR Performance Racing, his car was a Jet for the bulk of the weekend, and he walks away the winner of the Placemakers V8 International. Would you give it up for Jason Bright? Terrific. You worked hard for that, and we asked Murph about it before. Changeable conditions here today, and you adapted really well.
Yeah, it was difficult. We came out of Eastern Creek, scratching our heads a bit because we were pretty ordinary in the wet, and seeing the wet weather coming this weekend, we were a little bit worried. But the guys did a fantastic job. We certainly improved the car in the wet, and I think we had a car that was almost as good as Marcus in the first race, and there were times in that race where we were matching his pace. So full credit to them. And then in the dry, the thing was just a Jet, like you said. It was absolute pleasure to drive. And in the second race, we were probably a little bit off the mark, not quite as good as what we were in practice. But in the last race, we nailed it.
What's working for you with this team at the moment? The combination seems strong. Paul Wheel was also right in the mix today, wasn't he?
It's been a great team since the beginning. Last year we certainly had a tough year. We were we were with the VX for a long time. We had no testing. I think our results last year, considering what we're up against sometimes, was they were probably more impressive than what we're doing at the moment. But it's been a great team all along. We held on to all the personnel we needed over the summer, and we're really happy with how we started this year. We had a tough couple of rounds, the last couple of rounds, but I think we're back on it now.
Let's set up the next round, in fact, because from here we head to Hidden Valley and Darwin, a pretty tight turnaround, but you've enjoyed some success at that track before. It
is a track I like, and it's a track that has suited our car in the past, so I look forward to get up there.
Best of luck. Jason Bright, there he is, the winner of the Placemakers V8 International for 2004. And what another fantastic event it's been.
And the traditional champagne spraying on the podium. It looks like Jason Bright's copying it a bit, but he won't mind that one bit because he is the winner of the Placemakers V8 Supercar International Weekend. Greg Murphy up there as well, and Marcus Ambrose, the defending champion. 3 very classy drivers, and they have done